All right, good morning. Today we're going to be talking about what fair market rents are. The video itself will be specifically about fair markets for HUD, Section 8, low income housing, and so on. Um, as a few introductions, real quick, I'm the owner of Section8Consulting.com. I consult with major landlords, small landlords, and hundreds, if not thousands, of clients that have vouchers and so on that are seeking that type of service. So we work with a lot of people. Today, I wanted to address a question that I've been asked quite a bit about, and I'm going to be providing some federal documentation along with some ideas about what's going on with the market and how best to address this. I'm not going to be doing rent calculations, and you'll see why. I'm going to provide you with a much easier way to do this than for you guys sitting there with a pen and a pencil or a calculator trying to figure out the best way to figure out whether or not, if you're a landlord, if the property rents are going to be reasonable for you to invest, own, or even accept vouchers. And for those of you that are struggling with the voucher and trying to have an understanding as to why your voucher is not worth enough to even rent at fair market, then there'll be an explanation there. And I want to go over a news story that I thought was rather enlightening. The news agency that covered it did a superior job, and so they have my kudos on that. And this is also going to be a live video. So if you have questions, as of right now, it's 12/30/2021. So this video will be about an hour, and then after that, it won't be live anymore. So just to be clear, it's about 11 o'clock Texas time on the 30th of December. After that, it'll be old comments you're seeing. Good morning, Sunny C. I'm blind and I'm having problems. I need help getting on Section 8. Good morning, Sunny. I am sorry to hear about your not being able to see. Uh, I think, Sonny, the best thing, if you have somebody that is able to see well enough for you, to reach out to me through our website or through our email or even call us. I would say that I put some details in all the videos and all the comment sections if you have somebody there available to help you with that, okay? All right, so let's get into this a little bit. So, first thing I want to talk about is, a lot of you have the concept you're going to be able to sit down and calculate this. Now, look, HUD itself, Department of Urban Development and Indian Affairs, as we always leave off the rear end of that, does two types of calculations, and that's going to be for fair or rent reasonableness for the whole nation and its housing authorities. That calculation is then handed down to essentially every housing authority in America, and then they redetermine those numbers based on a number of factors. And I want to get into that real quick. Now, I've had to make notes, okay? So it's possible for me to speak quite a while, but without the notation, there would probably be a number of things I would leave out. And so let me just prepare. All right, so when you're trying to calculate fair market rents for your unit, it's going to be a gross rental estimate that includes the base rent as well as any essential utilities. So if your utilities as a landlord or a tenant or metered or not metered, and it will also include, it does not include non-essential, so internet and other things, or like your cell phone, okay, just to be clear. Um, HUD arrives at each number for each area. Now, one thing I want to tell you is the numbers that calculate can be quite interesting because if you're in a metropolitan area, the calculations may run higher. But if you go 5 minutes over a county line, you might get lowballed, and the rent calculation can be very low. The only way that these numbers are going to change if it's in a more of a rural area, and believe it or not, they consider rural almost outside the metropolitan area, and so what happens there is you see very disparaging differences. The only way to get those calculations changed is if possibly several housing authority or counties get together and then have a reassessment. And then in most cases, when they try to reassess and file with HUD, they may not be able to get a higher or lower calculation. I've seen that play out all around the country, where literally going over the county line could end up being a situation where you have a house on one side at 1,000 rent calculation and just 20 feet over the county line, and the next one it was considered rural, and the same property market rents, but the fair and reasonableness of it ends up being half of that. And so that's why I warn people with affordability. Those of you that have Section 8 vouchers that are trying to leave the state and move into other counties, that you could potentially end up cutting the value of your voucher in half, and it could be quite a bit of a nightmare, to be honest with you. I cannot say. Okay, so we have a little bit of spam in the channel, so y'all bear with me a minute. I'm gonna block this fool. Uh, all right, so I had to get rid of somebody. You got these Russian guys come in and they're trying to sell sex toys and everything else in the channel, so I had to get rid of that guy. All right, moving on. So I'm going to pull up a bit of information. I want to link up this for you guys so you could pull up your own fair market rents. And so we're going to go to HUDadvisor.gov, and I'm going to link that up right now in the live chat. This will give you the primary federal standard for all market rates for the nation. Okay. And then you have SAMRs or SMFRs. Those can be pulled up with the housing authority. So rather than you pulling out a calculator to determine rents, you can simply contact the housing authority. They will let you know. Okay. Now, one thing that's not presumed all the time is the fact that just because they post a list of what they believe would be fair market rents for the area does not mean that's written in stone. It is absolutely negotiable. And the things that can change that are things like amenities, whether or not there's refrigerators that are included, whether you have dishwashers, whether you have garbage disposals, the condition of the home, and then, of course, you have the inspector doing the HQS, the housing quality inspection. That person can make and break a deal. If it's a new property or a fairly new property, then if you've had a housing inspection by an actual licensed inspector, then you have room to negotiate. So there's many factors. So that goes back to sitting down with pencil and paper and searching the internet and Google tirelessly to come up with this magical calculation that's never going to work. So let me be very clear about this. There are thousands of videos suggesting you're going to sit down and you're going to calculate. No, you're not. You'll be wrong every single time. You're not considering all factors. And the only way you're going to come up with a clear calculation with that is with using what I just suggested, which is going to be through HUD. And then again, at your HQS. All right. That's the only way. I have people booking consults. Hey, can you calculate it for me? No, I cannot. What I can do is we can get the fair market rent from the housing authority, and we can negotiate that based on several criteria. Okay. Anybody else selling this stuff in any other way is an absolute fantasy. All right. Moving on to comments here, Dan. So I'm going to read a few comments. So Daniel Rose says Section 8 is called HUD in different states. No, it is not. Let's be clear about the system of what it is. And I'm not trying to be rude, okay? HUD is the federal administrator of all federal funds. Those funds are sent down to housing authorities. So that is what it is. Your housing authority is not HUD, and HUD is not the housing authority, just to be clear. If the property is owned by a private owner, so that's a subsidy property. Okay. If the property is owned by the housing authority, it is project-based housing. So you guys have got to quit referring to every housing authority and every building as HUD. It's not so. And it's not Section 8 either. Section 8 is a referral to a subsection of federal Title 24 subsection, just like you have in tax law. So it is a subsection of the law itself. It is not anything that is a physical item or a voucher. Okay. That's an old school term. And it has nothing to do with anything really, other than the fact that we use it a lot and people are used to looking up that word. Daniel Rose says, so I have a question. While they cut out my Section 8 in half if I move to Texas, well, I don't know. I know nothing about you, your case, how much money you have, whether you're low income, you're a senior, or anything. So I don't have any details as to what they will do without having to speak to you for at least 30 minutes to see what your case details are. I can't even establish where you're from, so that question is not going to be sufficient for me to give you a real answer. Next person says, always have faith. Some housing authorities, do you think they are HUD? Not quite sure what you mean by that. Housing authorities are not HUD, okay? I got to keep telling you guys that. Housing authorities are owned and operated by the city and the state. HUD is owned and operated by the federal government. There is a major distinction between the two. You do not drive to the HUD to get a voucher. HUD itself does not issue housing or any of that. It is the federal administrator of federal funds for housing authorities, okay? You guys have got yourself all confused with what's what with all this stuff. So, all right. So I want to read you all an interesting article real quick. and it's about lowballing. Okay, so they were talking about that uh, in Transylvania County, North Carolina. Housing advocates and renters in the mountains say that the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development is lowballing rent prices in the mountains, making it difficult for those that are on Section 8 or Housing Choice Voucher program. I think that it would be the Housing Choice program. So after they did an investigation over there, it turns out that the fair market rents, which is FMR, according to HUD's website, the FMRs represent the cost of rent, moderately priced dwelling unit in the local housing market. The FRMs are used to determine the payment standard amounts for the Housing Choice Voucher program, and also known as to many of you as Section 8. Okay. Essentially, the FMRs dictate how much the subsidy for people on Section 8 housing or in that program can get from federal government, which is HUD, to help them determine the rent and utilities if it's metered. Fair market rents and WNC, as it was indicated there last year, they were looking at the total numbers and the gap was pretty bad over there. As an example, two-bedroom house in Penrose and also in Ethwall county lines, the house in the Transylvania side was $573 less. They offered 573 less, despite those two houses, two different counties. The reason is HUD had managed to call that other county considered to be rural, and because it was rural, it got a much lower calculation. Now, what's interesting is the other county pulled up with several other housing authorities, and they were able to file to see whether they could get different determinations and to not get it marked being as rural. It ended up costing them like $75,000, and they won. But that case doesn't always won. So that's going on to that deal where everybody feels like they're lowball. It's true. Like I tell a lot of my landlords, I've got over 200 I deal with, many of which spend major money. And matter of fact, we just signed with a landlord. We're out here searching for $2 and $3 million properties. I've had others that would invest 20, 30, and even 40 million, 200 to 500 units in different areas. And one thing I've always had to explain to these folks is, this is the negotiation. Do you have an appropriate inspection? Do you have the right amenities in place? Have you negotiated all the incentives that you can with the director of services at the housing authority if it's big enough? So there's many elements you're looking at in order to get the best rental calculation. If you're from an investment perspective, the owner, or you're investing, or you're working with a group, then you first want to determine rent markets for the area and whether or not it's sustainable to get your return on investment from those areas. And so I always say, looking at rents to see if you're in the right zip code and right counties. If you're a client utilizing vouchers or wanting to utilize subsidies, project-based housing, tenant-based housing, and so on, I would say that when you're moving your voucher from one area of the state to another or from one state to another, looking at whether or not the value of your voucher where you're currently at would translate to the place that you're going. Would you be moving into a rural area where they would make a redetermination of your voucher and then it would get cut in half? And in other situations, you may take a New York voucher, which is a very expensive voucher like San Francisco, and you try to port across the country to another area that's very low income. So you would find that probably to be very easy. However, you might find that if you ever decided to exit the place that you just recently wanting to port to be of some difficulty because then you've been recalculated at a lower payment standard. Okay, because the rent the rent standards of the fair market rate for that area was extremely low. Not only that, but you're also looking at whether or not a lot of the amenities, well, I shouldn't say amenity, accommodations you guys file for, may not translate across from one state or county to another. So they literally reconsider this every time that you're moving. And same thing with landlords. My best advice for people is look, if you don't really know what you're doing and you're getting your advice from a house flipper or people that are buying and selling houses, I think that's fantastic. But they certainly do not understand the same arena of what I do. I spent a while looking at this, and I've got guys out here own 40, 50 properties, right? And they're giving a lot of fantastic advice. Nothing wrong there. But the problem is they don't have even the basic understanding of fair market rates to deal with Section 8. Okay. I've got guys that are selling books, and I've got women that are selling books and pamphlets and bullshit. These people have never once in their life read standards, policies, procedures, data manuals, Title 24, federal regulation, any of it, but yet are making volumes of videos, sending people chasing their tail because their understanding is strictly based on fair market rents for people who have a job, that are not included in subsidy, that are not included in vouchers or housing choice vouchers, and then many that are others that are out there. So you see how that can be dangerous to accept advice from people that are just standard market rate, that only understand investment from that point, and they don't have any formal background with really dealing with HUD, with the housing authority, and certainly the policies and procedures and standards that you have to fall within in order to make this successful. So I'm going to move on to some comments real quick, and I'm going to take a sip of my energy drink. This one's going to be a difficult video because we can really get technical in this video, okay? I'm just trying to keep it broad. I will make another video. We can sit down and do all the calculations you guys want to do. But for now, I wanted y'all to get a sample of what all is to be considered. Michelle Hyatt, I just got on. I was wondering, do you think Section 8 will adjust the market rent due to the rising housing prices? They've already issued 2022, so let's take a look. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to link it up. This will be FY 2022 Fair Market Rent Documentation System. This is issued. This is a federal database, okay? There's no second guessing it. It's not fake news. It is the United States government, and what it says goes. That's it. There's no other conversation to be had about it. Whatever they tell you these calculations are going to be, that is what it is. It can only improve or go down if the local housing authority decides to change rent calculations based on the local economy and whether or not there is a rule and a few other small factors, but you're not going to see much fluctuation from what I just linked up there. So to answer that person's question, yes, I think that there will be some changes. Do I think they will be favorable? No. In fact, we seem to be going backwards. In other words, rents are going up, but the amount of money that people are getting on their vouchers and subsidies are actually going down. And so, yes, you could ask me why, but I can just tell you that's a part of the most convoluted system that we've ever created. We run this country in so many ways. We fund everything, including the war machine. But when it comes to Section 8, man, I got to tell you, we don't do very well with that, okay? And then it's managed by people at the local housing authority. They have a little pamphlet they get, and that's pretty much the extent of their knowledge of the program. So sad but true. We have a guest star over here if y'all like to see. It's my big cat. Is that my biggest one or my smallest one? For those of you who don't know, I have about 22 cats. They pop in and out. I've got a lot of orange ones, so if y'all are pet lovers, y'all will definitely like my cats. So I'm going to move back to these comments and just take a look and see what else has got here. Anyways, Have Faith says, no, I was saying that some housing authorities think they are. Oh, okay. No, you're correct. You're correct in that belief that some housing authorities try to wield more power than they believe they have. A good example is Los Angeles and some of the housing authorities in the boroughs of New York. They sometimes operate as if their own sheriff. They have very little oversight at housing authorities. That's why when you Google lawsuits for housing authorities, there are pages of them. This is why you have directors going to prison, directors of housing authorities around the country where you have the HUDs going down there and charging them with federal crimes from stealing, manipulation, and other issues. You guys think it's just racism that's involved in this. It goes much deeper than that. There's so little oversight of that. And the only time they get put in check is when you guys report them, A lot of my clients come to me with complex cases, and that ends up with having to involve attorneys and other things just to get the business straightened out. Nobody's ever put a lot of these housing authorities in check. And when you deal with big ones like LA and all that, they've got their own legal or in-house counsel there, So I'm going to move on now. Sunny C, I'm living in Arizona now, but I was wondering if I can get a place in Montana. I'm on SSI. Montana's a great state. As a matter of fact, I was talking with one of my landlords today. He's looking at a 20-unit property in Montana. Rents are low, and the subsidies are good there. And yeah, I think you'd have a great opportunity in Montana. Montana's not struggling with a housing market. They're not overwhelmed. They're not part of the big problem we're seeing in California, Florida, New York, and the Upper East Coast. So I think you got a reasonable chance. Um, Mr. and Mrs. Hall, don't know the enunciation of the name, says, do FHA loans help pay your down payment? Well, right now, the current president will, if you have not purchased a home in the last 3 years, then you can qualify for $25,000 down. You must own the home for at least 10 years before selling it. Can't buy the home and then cash out to 25 grand. And of course, you're talking about FHA loans. I'm not an expert in this area. Okay. I deal with people that are all the time. So let's talk about that. So you have several type of loans that are available to you, whether you're in the metropolitan area. So you have the USDA loan. So if you're outside the metropolitan area, zero down, zero interest for a number of years. And there are a number of other factors in play. As most people decide to do the home ownership through Fannie Mae, Fannie Mac, an inclusion of the 25 grand that Biden, if that's not expired yet. And so, yes, there are some opportunities out there, Mr. and Mrs. Hall. And then Mr. and Mrs. Hall says, I mean, your closing costs. I think possibly Mr. and Mrs. Hall, that would be a better appropriate. That'd be a better question for a broker than me because I'm not licensed in any state here to go so deeply into this. So I don't know specifically whether or not the closing costs would be covered under a federal grant or program. And so I'm kind of driving out of my lane on that. I don't want to give you advice that's not real. So always have faith. Oh yeah, I get harassed badly by the housing authority I'm out of. Well, you're one of an army of people that have issues with housing authorities that get harassed. A lot of it has to do with hiring people that are just not qualified to even mow your lawn. Um, some of it has to do with the fact that they are a lot of them go in, they pay, they pay for a certificate. Many of the certificates are issued by Nana McKay, which write the housing authority operational manuals for most housing authorities around America. Not all of them, but some of the majors. And so, for $100, you can get your little license at the bubblegum machine and you go work at the housing authority. Most of your front level workers at housing authorities, the bigger ones, these people have little more education than somebody with a GED. And a lot of them will openly admit that the operation manuals they have above their computer on their little shelf in their office, most of them don't even read most of it. That's why when you ask questions, it's hard to get a direct answer. The people that know the most at the housing authority are not the most accessible people. These are portability specialists, this the director of programs, might be the oversight manager there or whatever title they carry. But the people that are answering the phone, that would be like talking to a wall. And most of them don't know anything. And when they don't know, they'll either lie. A lot of them just lie, or you get a dead silence and then they just hang up on you. And it's simply because they don't know. How do I know this? I've dealt with hundreds of housing authorities, and I don't think there's any secret at this point how badly housing authorities are run around the nation. Not all of them are like that. There are certain areas of the country where you have a fantastic wrecking crew of people that are in there. And what I mean by wrecking crew is, I mean, they're really good. They're exceptional at their job. But more often than not, what I've seen and experienced, and this is because not only do I deal with these housing authorities, I talk with probably a little I'm going to say under 100 housing authority um, employees, both current and former, that I've talked to that have come to the channel, YouTube. Others have emailed and called. Some have given me some fantastic information to keep me apprised of different things. And so you do get a consensus after 20 years, of what, why, and how all this is working out. Moving on, Sunny C, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Always have faith, says exactly. Um, Mr. and Mrs. Hall says, thank you. Always have faith. Have you ever dealt with Wilmouth Housing Authority in Boston? I've dealt with 99% of housing authorities in Boston, okay? Matter of fact, the East Coast I pretty much had covered a long time ago. That name does not ring a bell for me. So I have to look into that. Sorry about that. After doing it so long, you do cover almost everywhere. I think the more rural areas are where I have struggled with housing authorities. I encounter a lot of housing authorities where you have one employee in a house, no sign, no nothing. I've got housing authorities that I've dealt with that don't even have a website. Montana's famous for that. Arkansas is famous for that. You go out there, your little shack, and you find a little, 70-year-old woman behind a desk in what appears to be just a normal house. That is your housing authority. Congratulations. Yeah, you see a lot of different things around the country. You could be out there in Idaho in a cornfield, and you have a housing authority in the middle of nothing. And then we're starting to see virtual housing authorities these days. That's where there is no office. They own all the project-based housing. They don't issue any vouchers, and then there's no competing with them. I ran into one I was talking with this morning. They literally own all the Section 8 property. So when they own it, it's just project-based, right? I asked them, hey, man, what can we do about incentives, and do you issue? Oh, we don't issue any voucher. So what they've done is they've trapped the market. They've tracked the market. Let me give you some advice, guys. You don't ever want to both first get a voucher from a housing authority and then have them as your landlord. That is bad news. Real bad news. If you think a normal landlord can put you out and evict your ass quick, imagine them both giving you the voucher and then you're living at their property. Look, if they run the housing authority that bad, do you really want them to be your landlord too? Bad news. I'm telling you. So yeah, back to the fair market rates. I'm going to give you all that link again real quick. Like I said, this is supposed to be a general video. I'm not going to sit there and do the calculations and all that. To be frank with you, it bores me to death. The only reason I'm doing this video outside of the normal scope of helping people get housing or dealing with landlords that want to do this is because people have been asking. Otherwise, I really don't like getting into this particular subject because it's pointless. Housing authorities already issue fair market rates on a list. We can negotiate those. HUD does it by that link there that I just put there. So that's the federal standard. There's no reason for y'all to calculate anything, okay? If you don't know how to arrive at your own fair calculation, at least get within reason of it, hire a consultant, okay? That's the best thing you can do. I'm dealing with a landlord I just talked to. She's considering working with us, like most of my landlords, and it's just easier because what I end up doing is doing most of the work for her. Only thing she really needs to do is just get direct deposit and deal with her maintenance company. That's it. Much simpler way of doing business than trying to do everything yourself. Because if you're going to sit here and play landlord and you also want to do my job, then you're going to need a number of years to educate yourself. There are lots of pitfalls with this. And look, there's a sucker born every minute. And if you don't want to be one, you better be well apprised of how the housing authorities, HUD, and everything else works, its policy, its procedures, and everything that go along with it. Otherwise, what you're doing is you're gambling. You might as well go sit in a casino and gamble. So I think we're going to wrap it up. Normally I do these long-winded videos. Hell, this one's already long-winded. I just, wanted to cover this a little bit. This is an easy thing to address, and I think most of you should be able to do that on your own. If you don't know how to, shoot me an email. I'm going to give you some information in regards to me. By now, I really don't need any announcements. Most people around the nation know who I am. Most housing authorities know who I am. I've made 300-400 videos. I rank number one on YouTube. I rank number one on Google. There's little to understand about me. My reputation is about as solid as you get, and I've done it longer than a lot of you young ladies have been on that have been alive. Think about that. We're pushing 25 years, between 20 and 25. I have to check the exact date. Look, you reach a point in your career where you can do this without thinking. That's the reason I'm not sitting here with a teleprompter or a bunch of notes in my hand. How can you talk for an hour if you don't know what you're talking about? It's simple as that. So take on a few more comments here in a minute, and I'm going to link y'all up with some information for me. And look, nobody ever has to pay anybody for a voucher, okay? Don't ever assume that. You're welcome to do whatever you want. You go DIY yourself. You can call it housing authority 1,000 times, see that where it gets you. If you need a lot of good information, call 211. They're happy to hang up on you 20 times. You got lots of rodeo clowns making videos that don't know shit about anything. 1 week they're an expert at fidget spinners. The next week they're going to be a Section 8 consultant. There's lots of those clowns on YouTube. Let me tell you, I love some of the videos. 3 steps to a voucher. Now, have you ever heard of some horse shit like that? We're going to do 3 little steps. Could you even imagine? Now, look. As long as Section 8 and a housing authority has been around and you people waiting a decade, but you got this rodeo clown, party clown that shows up on YouTube, this is going to be 3 simple steps. It just blows my mind. But, people do anything to make nickels and dimes off of ad revenue on YouTube. So, you know what? If you need to put a few wooden nickels in your purse, go make a video about some shit you don't know. So anyway, I'm gonna put up some information for you guys to take a look at. First will be booking and website. I always encourage people to do your due diligence. If I can't, if my conversation and what I'm telling you doesn't match my reputation, then don't hire me. You know what I'm saying? You call HUD, and then you send the feds to my door. If I've been doing it 20 years, I haven't kicked my door in yet. I must know something. So I'm going to put this up here because I don't want you guys to get in trouble with party clowns. You know what I'm saying? You know, like, there's no reason to do that. If you want to take a look at reviews, I'll give you that. By the way, if you're not used to my type of personality, you're going to struggle with this channel because I use profanities. I do keep things very real. If you're used to being lied to, if you're used to hearing shit sugar coated, you're going to struggle a lot with this channel. Okay. You're used to being told that you're pretty all the time and all that. I'm not going to do that here. We like to discuss the facts, and then that reveals what it is. Okay, so if you wear your pride and your sense of personality on your shoulder, you're going to have a horrifying time getting through my videos, and there's lots of them. Okay, you'll be damaged goods before the end. So I want to encourage you all, you know, to do your due diligence, investigate things, try to educate yourself when it comes to this. And look, you know, it's like anything else in life. When my air conditioner breaks, I call the AC man. You know, when the car breaks, I call the mechanic. Look, when you deal with Section 8, if you're smart, when you're dealing with your home, which is one of the most important things in your life, it would be pretty smart for you to hire a consultant, okay? You're not out here shopping for a new pair of slippers, okay? This is your home. And if you're a landlord, this is your investment. And why you guys would invest one single penny into making sure you got that right is still beyond my belief after all these years. You know, find somebody that knows and understands the system to be able to help you. That way, I don't have to go and get a call from people, you know, a year later. Well, I don't understand why I'm in a homeless shelter with a free roll of socks in my hands. I don't understand why I'm under a bridge. I thought I had gotten all this. I watched a video for an hour and it said there were 3 steps to a voucher. I don't understand why I'm standing in front of the homeless shelter. Okay. So, all right. So I'm taking a few more comments here. I hope none of you go to the homeless shelter, you know. And for you landlords, I hope you don't invest in something bad. Look, I had a guy call me the other day. He wanted to buy an apartment complex in the middle of nowhere. Now, you know, there wasn't even a housing authority. That would have been a disaster. That guy would have lost so much money. He'd have got down there, painted everything up, only to realize the population of the town was about 400 people, and he was never going to be able to get his return on investment. Completely bombed the whole thing. But he was excited, so I give him that. That would have been a really exciting moment to completely lose your investment. Anyways, have faith. Oh yeah, I read your reputation solid. I appreciate that. You know, when you read reviews, mine are kind of crazy. But people don't leave me normal reviews. They complain, they bitch, they moan. They often request help in the reviews. I never understood that. Why are you a client and then you're asking for help in a review? So my reviews are all over the place. But they're still good. They're solid. That's the main thing. Another thing, you know, another good, solid reputation thing about all my videos, they're live. Do you see an angry mom of people here in the live chats that are angry and pissed off? No. Same thing with most of my videos. Most of them have less than 7 dislikes. Look, I can go to a lot of channels where over half their videos are wrecked from people, angry, pissed off people. I don't have that problem with any of my videos, you know, and I don't control like buttons. I can't remove likes. You see the point? So, moving on. Sonia, good morning. Happy New Year's. How are you doing? Peaches Greer, good morning. Happy New Year's. Anyways, good morning. How you doing? And my Russian friend is back. He put up bun.net. So this fool here, he's having a busy morning selling sex dolls and blow-up dolls. So I'm going to have to block him again. I don't know what this guy's hang-up is, man. He's busy this morning in Russia. I get these guys in the live chat. They're trying to sell sex toys, blow-up dolls, everything, you know. And so I just got to keep removing all their little comments. So, you know what, guys? I'm looking for a moderator. If you guys, any of y'all that are normal members of my channel want to be a moderator, can help me eliminate these links, I'd appreciate that because they're quite annoying. So, all right, guys, I've enjoyed talking about this morning, and I look forward to our next video. And I think we'll cover something a little bit more interesting. So y'all have a good day. Bye.